Hey, Jimbo, you ready for this deal?
Light the fuse, Cody.
Old stories like long lost friends, rodeos and late night bends, history before our time, round pens and pasture rides, cowboys of the Osage.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Cowboys of the Osage podcast, brought to you by the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum and the Buck and Flamingo Turquoise Shop, both located in historic downtown Pawhuska, Oklahoma. And our good friends at Shorty's Cowboy Hattery. Don't forget them, Oklahoma City Stockyards. Shorty, tell her me and Jimbo sent you. She'll make you one heck of a hat. Hey, it's old Cody over here. And as always, I have my main man with me, Mr. Rodeo historian himself, Jimbo Snively. Morning, Jimbo. What do we got going?
Hey, Cody, boy, it's a great day in Osage, man. And, Cody, we've got a real interesting guest today, I think. Mr. James Lockhart from down in the Choctaw country, down in the Comanche Mountains. He was a good roper, good calf roper. He started out left-handed, switched to right-handed, and he's the only guy that, I think this is true, he's the only guy that's ever tied a calf in 7, left-handed and right-handed.
Wow.
I don't know anybody could top that. And he still ropes pretty good. You see his videos on James Lockhart
barely
roping.
Pick my nose with my left hand,
That's
Jimbo.
with me too. And but like I say, he does this Facebook deal with James Lockhart roping. You need to check that out.
I've checked it out, and you know what? He has some pretty good advice on there on some of his stuff.
Yeah.
I've even things that I forgot about that's so simple and so right. Mm-hmm. I had my daughters watch one of his videos the other day. I said, now this guy explains what I've been trying to tell you girls.
Yeah. And he's wore a lot of hats too. He's also was a government trapper where, if they have a problem animal that's causing them troubles, livestock or something, he was the guy that could go take care of it.
I wonder if you've seen a Bigfoot out there.
Well, we'll get into that.
He's down there in that country.
Well, this was up here where he was doing that work.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just east of here. You
say
never were in Osage County, were you?
No, George Upchurch was the trapper over here.
But anyway, he did that for years, and then he went back home and decided to get into politics, and he served 3 terms in the state legislature here down in Oklahoma City. And something I'm proud of him, he quit, and he did all the good he could do, and he didn't just stay in there. And, some of them old guys, can't get them out of their dynamite. And he wanted to spend more time with his family, and he quit and doing other things now. And I think he's just an all-around interesting guy.
He knows a lot of rodeo history, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And he's also got a degree from Harvard, and I don't think we've ever had one of those guys.
Are you kidding me?
I'm pretty sure we have.
I felt like I was talking to someone real smart back there a while ago. I had no idea we're talking to a Harvard graduate here.
Well, he's not a graduate, but you got a degree from there. And anyway, James, welcome to the Cowboys of the Osage podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I kind of feel humbled to be on this deal. Y'all have had some really honored guests compared to me.
Well, you've done a lot, and I think you're a pretty interesting guy myself. Where'd you grow up?
Heavener.
Yeah.
It's spelled heaven with ER at the end of it. Instead of Heavener, we say Heavener.
I need to ask you about that rune stone down there. Is that a real deal?
As far as I know, it is. The Vikings came and carved on a rock about 1,000 years ago, and they've radiocarbon dated that thing, and
so it's legitimate.
pretty legitimate as far as I know.
As far as I can tell.
The Vikings were in Heavener, I guess,
Yeah.
huh? I didn't know nothing about it, Jimbo.
Well, yeah, it's a big tourist attraction. There's a big stone outside town there somewhere with Viking carvings on it, letters and stuff, and they think it goes back to like 500 years before Christopher Columbus.
You know what I really appreciate about Vikings? Those big helmets with horns they wore on them.
Yeah.
I really like that for some reason.
I wonder where they came up with that idea. That seems strange, but it is pretty cool. But anyway, get back to where you grew up. we get sidetracked every once in a while.
Yeah, my dad worked for the railroad there in Heavener, and my mom, when I was little bitty, she just kind of worked minimum wage jobs. She worked at a skating rink for a while, and then she was the very first class president of the very first nursing students there at Carl Albert. And so she became a nurse, and that really made a lot of difference in our family when she started into her nursing career.
Right. So your dad was an old railroad guy.
Yeah.
Union.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, he drove the train, and when I was little, he'd get on a train and either go to Watts, Oklahoma, or south to, I don't remember the south route. He always went north, but he'd stay the night at Watts, or maybe 2 nights, and then come back home on another train. But my dad was gone a lot, and my mom's dad, my grandpa, I stayed a lot with them when I was little, and that guy took me hunting and fishing and all kinds of fun stuff back then.
Well, how'd you get interested in roping?
When I was little, I was kind of a bench warmer on the ball teams. I'd get to play some, but I wasn't one of the main ones, and I always griped to Mom and Dad about that. And my dad's uncle lived out there kind of in the woods in the national forest, and I got to going out there. He had put on trail rides, and so I'd go with him and clear brush and stuff for the trails, and got to roping the brush and dragging it out of the way, and then he got to putting on junior rodeos, and then I think it was in 1986, Don Smith, IRA World's Champion and NFR qualifier, he put on a roping school at his house. He lived at Hodgen, about 5 or 6 miles south of Heavener, and I went to Don's roping school, and that's really where it started at.
He was quite a roper, wasn't he?
Yeah, he won Houston, he won Cheyenne, roped in Madison Square Garden. He's Reba McIntyre's first cousin, and so later on when I got old enough to drive, I'd go over there and stay with Danny Hamilton. And, Danny furnished roping calves, and Billy Lee and Bradley's about my age. And
he was a roping guru from southeast Oklahoma, old Danny. He helped a lot of young guys, and his boys were top-notch ropers, too. I never seen Danny rope much, but I've seen him coach on a lot of people, and he knows what he's talking about.
He'd get aggravated to us, and he'd tie like one calf from the post every now and then just to put us in our place.
Ain't that the way that old age and treachery goes?
Gosh.
Holy moly, my dad used to do the same thing.
There, for a while, we'd put a quarter on the post and have quarter match tines, and I mean, that was a knife fight every now and then.
We'd go hair pull out of the leg, and to this day, I still don't have any hair on my leg for all the hair pulls I lost.
Well, you went to Barry Burke's, some of his stuff.
Yeah, in '89, I didn't even know about it. Don told my dad that
Don also read where Don bought your first horse for you, didn't he?
Yeah. Don. My dad told Don to find me a horse. I kind of had like an old junkie horse when I was little, but never forget. I was going to go to school early one morning. The phone rang, and I answered it, and he said, "This is Don." He said, "I got you a horse. You need to come down here this evening." And that horse was real fat. He'd been on wheat pasture, but Don made me lope him for a few weeks before I ever ran a calf on him. But we got that horse bought, and when Dad bought that horse for me, it was $1,500. And he told me, he said, "If I'm having to pay $1,500 for a horse, you're going to make a deal with Don, and you're going to learn to rope." And so I raked hay, I worked in the chicken houses, I built fence. I mean, whatever Don told me to do, I did. And so in '89, Don told Mom and Dad to take me down there to Barry Burke's, and I won the breakaway, and we did pretty good on that horse. I ended up going to college on rodeo scholarships and academic scholarships too, but that was a really, really good horse. He really worked.
Yeah, we just bought the girls 2 old team roping horses, and I said, you girls probably going to have to long trot these suckers for 60 days before you run any cattle on them. Get their air built back up, get them in some sort of shape, and a lot of people just don't realize you're not supposed to just grab them up from the pasture after sitting there all winter and go rope. But
You said you kind of became good friends with Barry and Blair, both, didn't you?
Yeah. One thing I'll always remember about winning that roping that day, when I went up there to get my money, Cheryl told my mom, we didn't know who James was when y'all showed up, but we sure know now. But I'd buy horses when I was in college, and I'd rope on them, around college and whatnot. And then I figured out I could take them down there and Barry'd sell them for me. And so I'd make, $1,000 or $2,000 on every horse, and Barry'd make money. And I don't know how many horses that we did that way, but we did a bunch all through college. And I mean, Barry was really good to me. That sorrel horse that Blair set the arena record on, he had me ride him one day, and in college I started roping right-handed, but Barry'd always had me run some breakaways left-handed on him to kind of keep him straight. But I rode that horse, and then I rode that black horse at Shane Slack's, the Boogeyman. But I rode both those horses. But Barry, I never got to ride Sweetness, and I never got to ride Hammer. Hammer was there the day that I rode that sorrel horse, and I didn't ask, and he didn't offer to let me get on Hammer, but I sure wanted to. But anyway, I got to ride a lot of good horses back then. Barry was really good to me. I called Barry one time when I was trying to make the CWRA finals. My horse got crippled. And it's a funny story. He told me, he said, I got this horse this old man had. He's real free. He said, I'll send him over there to this rodeo. And so I go over there, and they had the horse. Some guy brought the horse over there for Barry. And I mean, when I threw it, this horse did stop. And I tied that calf to place, and he got up. But I called Barry when I headed out of there. I was like, I thought you said that horse was free. He said, oh, we worked on him before we sent him over there.
Oh, Barry, he was a character, wasn't he? He was a real character.
Oh, man, he was something else.
He was a hype man. I felt like a real live hype man. If he was in your corner and he liked you,
yeah.
He'd always make it a point to come over and talk to you before you rope and tell you to hit that start and get up there, be aggressive, rope that, even in the steer roping.
And Blair, like, just here lately, like, I've took an old horse down there to Blair, and he, the mare that's out here in my trailer right now, Blair found for me, and I'm just going to breed her. But even Blair, I mean, Blair's been really good to my kids. He brags on Jacob, and he gave Hope stuff, like bell boots and whatnot that he rode at the NFR when she's a little kid. But I mean, even Blair's been real good to my family.
Blair's a great guy. Give us a little bit of history on that Burke family real quick before we move on past them, Jimbo. Because it isn't just Blair and Barry, for sure.
No, his dad was D, and he had an uncle named Jiggs, and the best roping one of his uncles was Clyde, who was a several-time world champion cat roper, and he got killed in 1945 at Denver, hazing a steer for Bill Hancock. Steer ducked out underneath his horse and did a flip there in the Denver and killed him. But he also had two brother-in-laws, D and Clyde, and they were good ropers. Roy Lewis was one of them, and the guy by the name of Amy Gamblin was a real famous roper back in the day, and they were brother-in-laws to those Burke brothers. So he come from a long line of cowboys and rodeo cav ropers especially.
Yeah, them Burkes, they were historic rodeo family, no doubt.
They said Amy, or my grandpa always said Amy was the one that kind of kept their horse. He was the horseman of the bunch and kind of kept their horses going for them and stuff. My grandpa told me that.
I know they helped a lot of people up and coming in this roping today. And the knowledge they gave them, they're passing on to other people today, too. So
yeah, it really rocked the rodeo world when Clyde got killed. My grandpa thought a lot of him. He was mad about it because he said that steer should have never been in the draw, that he'd ducked out under horses before, and he ducked out underneath Clyde's horse and did a flip. And and the funny thing, or not funny, but that was in January when that happened. And then just a month or two later, when Fritz Truon was killed at Iwo Jima, he was an old all-around world champion, was killed at the Battle of Iwo Jima. And so that was two deaths just with a month apart, of world's champion cowboys, that just really rocked the rodeo world in 1945. Bad deal.
See what I got to deal with all the time. I love it.
Well, that's common
Jimbo
knowledge.
knows
I
his
thought
stuff.
everybody knew that.
Common knowledge. Listen to him.
But, you roped left-handed. What made you want to start roping right-handed?
So in college, I went to OSU in '94 and kept my calves at Nathan Payne's. Puddin Payne was a PRCA Rookie of the Year and roped really good. But Nathan, we'd go to ropings and whatnot, and I couldn't hold my slack and turn calves around. And Nathan never would tell me to switch, but he'd say, well, if you was right-handed, you could just spin them around. And he said, you tie as good as anybody. And I got my permit in college, and I went to 5 or 6 pro rodeos and finished one hole out of the money at almost all of them. But the last one I went to was Hope, Arkansas, and I was 9-4 and was one hole out of the money. And I had somebody video that. I was by myself, but I had a camcorder and had it videoed, and I went back and watched, and there just wasn't much I could change. And I just made my mind up, I'm going to do this, or I'm just going to quit. And I took a pocket knife and cut my left-handed ropes up and threw them in the trash so I didn't have them. And I went to the feed store, and I bought one poly. And I didn't tell nobody. I was scared to death, like, I'm gonna be an idiot, this is not gonna work. But I roped a dummy behind my house there in college. I lived alone. And in May, when I went home, I got lucky. I went to Sale Barn, and they had 5 like little Coriani calves. And at Mom and Dad's, the lane is 30 feet wide and 300 long. And so when Mom and Dad was at work, I had 4 horses. I'd saddle a horse and put one calf in the pen, and I'd breakaway rope it. And then when the horse and the calf just wouldn't go no more, I'd get another horse and another calf, and I'd just keep doing it. Well, come home in May, and in June, they had a roping at J.P. Wickett's in Salisaw. And the first calf I ever ran, I tied a 9/8.
Right-handed.
Yeah, right-handed. And then I went to a open rodeo up by Henrietta that weekend and placed. I tied 1 and 10. And then that was in '96. Well, then in '97, I made the CWRA finals, and did pretty good, and just kind of stuck with the right-handed deal after that. Being right-handed, it let me head. I'd always wanted to head, and heeling left-handed, the steer's always kind of swinging away from you, and so it's really hard to throw under that neck and get a good heel shot. But heading is fun for me. I can kind of reach and kind of get a little wild, but I liked heading. That was really fun.
I saw a left-handed header one time. It was down there around Henrietta. There was this old man who used to put on these ropings, and he'd reach and rope them left-handed, then he'd take it the right hand and flip it over his horse's head and dally. It was the craziest thing. He didn't miss very many, though.
Well, when you were roping left-handed, you told me, of course, people by then were starting to hold on to their slack and trying to switch calves around. And you said you just couldn't get under the big as you are and stuff. You just couldn't hold that slack and get under the rope for a right-handed tie.
Oh, you lose sight of your calf when you're ducking under. And that was one thing that I'd duck under and look up and like have to totally change my direction a lot of times on, if the calf is getting a bad fall or something. But roping right-handed, you don't ever lose sight of your calf. And it's just such an advantage, I think.
Well, also explain why you wanted to tie right-handed, not left-handed.
Well, if you tie them left-handed, calves are used to being tied by right-handed guys, and when you tie them left-handed, they'll kick the daylights out of you. Yeah. And I had that happen a lot. I tried roping them and tying them left-handed, and I got kicked a few times, and it just James Zan, I think, is the only person ever made the NFR roping and tying left. I know Tom Walker would duck under and tie them right, but
Bob Ragsdale, Ronnie Seawalt, they all tied right-handed.
Yeah, there's a reason for that. Them calves don't like it, especially a stouter calf. A little old weak calf, they're going to take it no matter what, but you draw a middle of the herd or one that's kind of stout, they're going to kick you.
They can't figure out what's going on laying on that offside, can they?
It confuses the dickens out of them.
Buddy of mine, he quit roping left-handed. He made the national finals roping left-handed. Pake McIntyre, tripping steers. Then he went to right-handed. He didn't even carry a coil because it was too much for him to handle, right-handed. He didn't even have a coil in his rope when he went to right-handed. He almost made the finals right-handed, real close.
I always tell people he one of the craziest things, he won Pendleton left-handed and won the Ben Johnson right-handed.
That's cool.
I mean, that's crazy cool.
Yep. Anyway, he's the only guy I've ever known to successfully switch hands.
Yeah, in the steer roping, yeah. Well, James tied 1-7 both hands. That's pretty crazy too. But were you ever around Bill Hensley?
Not a whole lot. He was down there like one time when we were tying, and to me, he was kind of real quiet and didn't say a lot. Puddin' Payne learned from Bill, and Puddin' would even call Bill like when he was rodeo and talk to him, and they said Bill was just like so good at the mental game. It's just the way he talked to you. He could, and Alana tells me, Puddin's wife tells me that, Puddin' was having heck there for a little bit, and he called Bill and talked to him, and Bill told him, you just need to get you an ice cream cone and like calm down and like don't fight it so hard. And I think the next rodeo Puddin' won or placed that, and Lana always laughed. He said he'd call Bill and say, well, got me an ice cream cone.
Yeah.
Didn't Roy Cooper talk about Bill Hensley or his brother Clay Tom?
Clay Tom talked about him a lot. We've had several people bring him up.
A lot of people.
He's helped a lot of people.
With their tying.
Yeah, with their tying especially. He had kind of a short wrap and stuff, and I've had people tell me he was a school teacher and stuff and kind of stayed around home, but said if he'd have wanted to travel, why Dean Oliver might not have as many world championships as he did.
Well, we've had some major guys praise Bill Hensley.
They sure have.
Especially on helping them tie.
Right.
And I'll tell you,
Pake was one of them.
Yeah, Pake was one of them.
At Stillwater with Nathan Payne and Puddin' Payne, the mental game was what they really helped me with that. And Nathan said to me one time, he said, I'm not just prepping you for roping, I'm prepping you for when you're later on and you got some people following you around, you're going to have to learn how to deal with that. And I remember he said that, and I thought, you're freaking crazy. Well, now that I'm married and got kids and stuff, I look back at that and I'm like, man, how do you know all that? You know what I mean? But Nathan Payne was really just, he really, really worked with me on, broke a barrier at a roping one day, is in the last round, and I would have won the last round and won the roping. And boy, I was mad, and we're driving home, and he's like, you got to figure out, when them calves have been run through 4 or 5 times, they're going to slow down, and you got to see a little bit more. Well, then, like down here at Mounds about 3 weeks ago, he's at a roping, and I was riding my horse around, and I happened to look over there and watch a guy run one, and I thought, they've been run through a bunch, they're slowing down. And I seen a little more and didn't break the barrier. So just stuff like that, though. Nathan he was phenomenal.
Right.
He was a master of the game.
Did you train your own horses and stuff? Did you buy horses? Or? I know you bought that first one, Don Smith found for you.
The really good one I had through college and when I was first married, the one that I rode at the pro rodeos, I raised him. He was actually race bred. He was Bugs Alive in 75 and Leo. But everybody called him Gus. He looked like Topper, looked like Roy Cooper's horse. But, I raised that horse, and we trained him. Gary Johnson rode him 30 days for me, but other than Gary, that was the only one I ever really tuned on him any.
Gary Johnson, great calf horse trainer, lives in Henrietta, Oklahoma, I think. Brother to the great Mike Johnson, but Gary, for people that don't know him or don't remember, was just a good roper as Mike going up and down the road, and a great horse trainer. One of the greatest horse trainers. I've known several people send horses to Gary, and they were some of the top horses in the game when he was done.
That sorrel horse was 5 years old, and I got him back from Gary, and I rode him at the round building at Muskogee, and I tied a calf in 8. Well, then just a few weeks later, they had the Longhorn Rodeo at Tulsa, and I tied a calf in 9-1 at the Longhorn Rodeo. And I knew that when I roped that calf at the Longhorn Rodeo, this is when I'm roping left-handed, but I thought, I got a horse, I can play with him now. But that horse could run, and he'd stop. God dang, that horse would stop. he'd stop so damn hard, I'd give it back to him and not hold the slack because it just jerked the crap out of me. But that horse, Howard Edmondson rode that horse, Shane Ross rode that horse, Billy Lee rode him. There's a whole bunch of people rode that horse and won on him. He was really good. Ken wanted to ride him, and it just never worked out where Ken rode him. But that was a good horse. I sold him when he was 18. But he was sure a good one.
He probably stayed good for quite a while longer after you sold him too, didn't he?
I knew he was starting to have some arthritis in the hock, and we had sold our place and made some money, and I wasn't sure. The place we was going to, I didn't have a place to practice or even a place to keep him. And so I sold him and put all that money on the next place that we had, and that kind of helped us out, But I kind of
sure is hard to replace one of those good horses.
Well, and that's kind of the deal. Like, okay, I can do this and help my family, or he's got 2 or 3 good years left, maybe. And so I got rid of him and put that money toward the next place, type deal. And they did. Boy, they won a bunch on him. Marty Brock and Jeff Cargill's the ones that wound up with him, and I think he kind of went down on him. Somebody told me he got hung up in a disc or something right after Marty bought him. Like they turned him loose in a rope and ring, and there's a disc in there or something, and he got into it.
That's another one of those names, Marty Brock. It seems like every little area has a calf roping guru in it, and wherever Marty Brock lives, he's one of the gurus in his area. He's one of the old guys that helps all the young guys out. Very positive guy, very religious guy too. But Marty Brock, good guy, and his brother we've had right here on the podcast, Bobby Brock, and Bobby's the timeless cowboy because he's way up in his 70s and he's beating the young guys still. So the Brock family, got to tip our hat to them.
Yeah,
for sure. Well, how'd you get that USDA trapping job?
So a lady went to nursing school with my mom, and her husband was the trapper down there in LaFleur County where I'm from, and he had a trapping buddy that become a supervisor up in northeast Oklahoma, and that guy hired me to do. I started out with Washington, Nowata, Craig, and Ottawa counties. I had 4 counties, and then later on I got Tulsa County. But I rode around with Randy Wiles was the guy from Heavener that was a trapper, and I rode around with him, and he basically trained me. And then when I started, I mean, all I really had to learn was a little bit of paperwork. But I started April 1st of 1999. And got married July 31st of 99.
And you were living up here somewhere.
Yep, lived in Nowata in town there for a while, and then we moved in a rent house out on the old Bliss Ranch out there between Nowata and Veneta. Mm-hmm. And that was an awesome place. We loved that out there. And then we bought some land there in Allowee on the east side of Oologah Lake and built a little arena and barn. But and then I sold that place, and we moved to Oshaleta for a while and lived at Oshaleta. But, yeah, from 99 to 05, I was the trapper.
So you'd get a call, I guess?
Yeah.
They'd say, hey, they're getting my goats or getting my calves or whatever, and you'd show up and make a few sets. And how long would you stay in one area till you thought you got the most of them? Or?
Yeah, mostly you did beaver work, like beavers damming up a creek. County commissioner would call, the beavers dammed up the creek and the roads, got water on it, trapped the beavers. Beavers like getting in a pond and cutting trees down, stuff like that. Coyotes would, spring and fall both, killing baby calves or baby goats. The Dungus Ranch bought 1,000 mama goats and turned loose to eat the Cerisa Lespedeza. And I mean, the coyotes were wiping them goats out. We used helicopter, and we killed about 100 coyotes in 4 days.
Oh, wow.
And then Blue Mound, like Dungus Ranch is kind of southeast of Blue Mound, and then the Blue Mound ranches at that time was owned by a lady named Martha Burkhart. And when that Killers of the Flower Moon book come out, well, that really piqued my interest because the main character's name is Burkhart. Mm-hmm. And I, wondered, like, how in the world do you get a 10,000 acre chunk of ground bought? There's no roads through that. There's 10,000 acres there, and there's no public access. But anyway, I just think that might have been a descendant of that deal or something. But Yeah, I've been on all them big ranches, the J7, J-Bar 7. Joe Neal that had the feed yard over there at Veneta, his family. Funny story, Joe Neal's son-in-law, I think, was Larry Layton, and I went to college at OSU with Rowdy, Larry's son. And it's kind of funny, Larry called me to trap coyotes or beavers, and I got talking to him, and I said, I went to college with a boy named Rowdy. He's like, yeah, that's my boy.
Small world.
Small world, man. But
did you ever run on any wolves or anything?
so I had a call one time right up on the Kansas line, and it was horse colts that had been killed. A guy had lost 2 horse colts. Well, our training, the first thing that I'm trained to think of when the horse colt's been killed, it's a line. And we've got manuals that measure bite radius, and it's like a little crime scene when you go out there.
Wow.
Well, I actually took the manual and the tape measure, little ruler deal, and I'm like fixing to confirm the first mountain lion in Oklahoma. And I get up there. And
Seems like Oklahoma just denies there's mountain lions here when there's all kinds of proof all the time that
this is before,
there are mountain lions.
This is before
Okay.
trail cameras came out. But you skin the neck back, and a dead animal, when something's eating on a dead animal, that dead animal doesn't bruise. But you skin that neck back, and when you find puncture wounds and there's bruising on the underside of the hide, well, that animal was alive, and something killed it, So anyway, I get up there, and it's freaking coyotes. Killed 2 horse colts, and they looked healthy to me. I mean, they weren't poor; they were healthy colts. And so those coyotes that we killed, only killed 2. One of them weighed, I think, 41 pounds, and the other one weighed like 44, as a male and a female. And I got telling my boss in Oklahoma City, but to answer your wolf question, the range of the gray wolf barely dipped into Oklahoma, right over there where that was at. But we think they were a little bit of a remnant of a gray wolf or something like that. But they were the biggest coyotes ever caught.
Well, sometime around that time, and I don't know the exact date, they trapped, I think government trapper trapped one out here west of Huska at Burbank.
Might have been.
A big gray wolf.
Might have been George.
It might have been. I can't remember. But he's now mounted over at Woolly Rock up on top. And it says right there, trapped near Burbank, Oklahoma. And how he got here, where he came from, I have no idea. But because as far as I know, there wasn't any wolves here. But he was sure enough a wolf. He's big. He weighed 150
pounds. So I do know a
something.
mountain lion story, and I'm about halfway afraid to tell it because it's Osage County. But one of your big ranches around here had a lion kill a calf. Now, this is about the year 2000, somewhere in that neighborhood. But supposedly they got that lion mounted at their ranch.
Yeah, sitting down here at the county museum just right at the end of this street.
Okay, well,
the Drummonds, Frederick Drummond.
I was afraid to say who it was, but
No, Frederick told me that that's his mountain lion down there at the county museum that they had mounted.
I'm pretty sure George killed it. George Upchurch was the trapper over here. I think it was George that killed it.
But I've seen, evidence of mountain lions in Oklahoma. And at the same time, the state of Oklahoma is saying there are no mountain lions in the state of Oklahoma. So what's going on with that?
They admit it now. They've got
Do that?
several
Well, at the
confirmed.
time, they weren't admitting it.
Right.
So maybe that's
for
just
the first time, this is 26, but in 25, I think, for the first time, we got trail camera pictures of a mama with kittens. And we've got 2 different locations where they have had kittens. And that's the first time in Oklahoma history that we've got documented reproduction in the state.
They always said it was just males looking for new territory, which didn't make sense because if there wasn't any females, why would the males just keep coming back,
So in southeast Oklahoma, we've got massive amounts of national forest and then
and cedar trees and ticks, too.
timber company land. But those game wardens down there, there's quite a few people getting lines on trail cameras.
Yeah. We get them up
that's
here.
all brush down there. And
Yeah.
So there's some around.
Yeah, they're not as thick. Most people that see one, they're seeing something. There's some misidentification because some people see black ones and there are no black ones.
There's been one down by Hominy.
Yeah.
Last year?
And when you send them a picture too, or at least the way it was 2 or 3 years ago, if you send them a trail cam picture, they'll come out to verify it. They don't just take your word for it. And they'll set up and look at the tracks and they'll do something to check the size, make sure everything jives, that it hadn't been doctored with, before they'll confirm it,
I've been wanting to get one of them trail cameras that sends the pictures to your phone.
Yeah, we've used those. Those are
And
nice.
so down there in southeast Oklahoma in the Comanches, there's some places where there's a lot of like rock ledges, and those lines will travel them rock areas, And I've always wanted to set a trail camera up down there on them rocks and see what I could see.
A lot of people don't realize there's a lot of bear in Oklahoma.
Yeah, they're a nuisance.
Are they?
Yeah.
I heard they're making a big comeback right now
Yeah.
in the state.
So, like, the way you do a bear study, or at least the way I was trained, you can get a can of potted meat for like 30 cents at the store, and you just nail it on the side of a tree about waist high. Well, a raccoon, he can't hang on to the tree and pull the meat off, but a bear walks up there and can just bite it off. And so you just, like every quarter mile or half mile or however you want to do it, but like you drive down a road and, you nail a can up. And so most of the places in the United States, if you get hits on 60, 70% of your cans, there's a lot of bears there. We've done them in southeast Oklahoma before where we have hits on not like 90% of the cans. And there's a lot of bears in southeast Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And there's a lot in Arkansas right in there, and they cross the line a lot.
They seem to be expanding their range, like Cody said. They're coming up this way.
Yeah, I think we've had documented bear sightings in all 77 counties now.
Yeah. Wow. How'd you like to see that, Cody?
I'd much rather see a bear than a mountain lion, I
Would you?
think.
Bears are just a nuisance, man. They'll break into your cabin. We've had them get into the feed room, and they just make a mess is the main thing. They're just messy.
Did you ever have to deal with any pigs? Did you have to get rid of
Yeah,
pigs?
oh yeah, that's a big deal.
Well, they're talking about a nuisance now. That's a nuisance.
So we were killing pigs to do disease studies.
Mm-hmm.
After 9/11, we did a lot of stuff where we're trying to figure out what diseases are present because we were afraid of biological weapons attacks after the terrorist attacks. But down by Weber's Falls, we were shooting hogs out of a helicopter, and they'd wounded this big hog, and he got in the brush. And I went in there with my dog, and my boss was behind me with a sack full of like specimen cups and stuff like that. We were taking the tonsils out and blood samples, but that dang hog charged me, and I shot him once, turned around to get that sack of stuff from my boss. We was in a slough. We had to wait a slough. Well, when I turned around to get that stuff, Jim started yelling at me, "Get him!" Like, well, he's charging me again. And that time I shot him point blank. But that hog had the biggest tusk, and they were razor sharp. They were bigger than my thumb. I've never seen a hog
They are
with
sharp,
tusk
too.
like that. that was massive. But when we left out of there at the little country store down there at Weber's Falls, they said that hog had killed a whole bunch of dogs. But that's the only time I ever sure enough got charged by one.
I've heard they're mean.
We just now had one show up on our trail cameras this past year. We've dodged them all this time. Their neighbors had them, and we'd never seen one, but we had a big black boar show up at our feeders. Different ones, always a nocturnal, never showed himself in daylight.
I killed a whole bunch of them one time by accident. I guess I can tell this story. So I had heard that clay pigeons would kill beavers like they were poison. And so over at Veneta, there was a gun club, and I just went out there and asked them if I could pick up some of their clay pigeons. I'd get me half a 5-gallon bucket. And there was a pond out on a big ranch, had some beavers in it, and there was nothing else around. There's nothing. And so I walk around this pond. It wasn't a very big pond, and I put out these clay pigeons. Just like everywhere there's a beaver trail coming out, I thought, I'm going to see like if I can kill beavers with clay pigeons. Well, a few days go by, and I drive back in there, and the first thing you'll notice when you kill out the beavers, the water is not as muddy. Like, they make the pond muddy. Mm-hmm. Well, I drive in there, and I was like, hey, that water cleared up. I got looking. I was like, I don't see any fresh chewing on the trees. Well, I get to walking around that pond, and there is none of them clay pigeons. And I put out half a 5-gallon bucket, and I figured there was like 2 beavers in there. Well, I'm driving out, and the ranch hand stops me. And he's like, what'd you do to my hogs? I was like, what do you mean your hogs? He's like, well, I turned loose some wild hogs in here to hunt. And he's like, they're all dead. They're over there in the hay meadow. I was like, really? Well, clay pigeons will kill a hog. But the new ones that we have today.
Well, he ought to have been whipped for turning something loose out there.
Well, that's what I thought. I didn't say nothing to him. But the new clay pigeons we have today, I don't think are poisonous like that. But back in the day, it used to say on the box, don't have around swine. Yeah.
They don't make anything like they used to anymore.
Yeah.
Dang it.
Well, where were you at? You mentioned you touched on it there a while ago, 911. Where were you at when you got the news about 911? Because I remember where I was at.
I know exactly where I was at. We were hunting coyotes with a little plane on that Burke ranch there east of Dewey. And I wasn't in the plane. We had to have guys on the ground that followed them and in case they crash, and stuff like that. But I was sitting in my pickup early that morning. It was I think it was a Tuesday, pretty day. And it come on the radio. And then it come on the radio, the president grounded all air traffic. And so we landed that plane on the little old pasture road there. And, we're all standing around the pickup listening to it unfold. Well, it got to be lunchtime. We're hungry. And so that pilot flew into Bartlesville in the plane, and we had to go to the airport and get him and take him to lunch. He come walking out of that airport, and he was white as a sheet. He said when he got back in the plane that they were frantically calling for him, and they was afraid maybe he'd taken off and was going to fly the plane into a building.
Because nobody was supposed to be in the air.
Yeah. And they were about to send like the fighters looking for him or something. But he got his butt chewed over that. And so that's where I was the day of September 11th. And then it was just a week or 2, 3 later that my boss come to me and he said, we got trappers in New York that do this job in New York, and they're having to help there with the cleanup. And he said they're give out. They're asking for people to come help them. And so I volunteered to go up there.
I'll tell my story where I was at. It happened in the morning, and I just pulled up to work there behind the old Pershing school there at southeast town. And my boss, he'd had the radio on. He got out and said, hey, a plane just flew into one of the Twin Towers. We thought, wow, that's bad. But we thought at the time it's probably a little plane, and it was an accident, And so I had to leave. I had to get on a four-wheeler and make my rounds checking oil wells. So I didn't have any more radio contact or anything with anybody for about an hour. And when I get out to open the gate, I just happened to look up in the sky. I don't even know why I looked up. And here's all these chemical trail or vapor streams, what are you going to call them, from jets. They've got these big circles where they're going back. Usually a jet stream is just straight. And there were several of them. And some of them would be 90, some of them would be a U. And I thought that was the weirdest thing. And what happened, that's when they finally figured out what was going on. They told everybody to go back to their original or the closest airport. And that's why you had all these crooked streams, people going. I knew something bad was wrong then. And that was just an eerie look because you'll never see that again probably where those...
That day we left Bartlesville, and my boss called me. He said, go fill up your truck. And I'll never forget, there was one gas station in Nowata that jacked prices up that day. And I had a government fuel card, and that's where I had to buy gas. But they jacked the prices up on fuel that day.
And that's something.
And I'll tell you something else. The week or 2 before September 11th, there's a big ranch up there at Lenapaw, sold all their calves, and they sold them on the spot. They got $500 a head out of their calves. Well, then, I don't know, right before I went to New York, I had to take some calves to the sale. Well, our economy kind of tanked there for a little bit. My dadgum set of calves averaged $3.52. Them tariffs cost me money.
Them son of a guns.
You said something that motivated you to go too was that all the help that people came to Oklahoma City after the Murrah building.
Yeah. My father-in-law was a fire chief in Oklahoma City, and when the Oklahoma City was bombed, I'm pretty sure it was the rodeo at Guthrie, but Oakberry won the Bulldog, and he went up there and told him, said, just send that down there to Oklahoma City, them people.
Well, see, that's a story I've never heard before. Have you ever heard that?
No.
I mean, that's
that's what
good for him.
That's what was announced at the rodeo. But I just felt like you can't tell them no.
I guess, would that have been the circuit finals back then in Guthrie? Or
No, it
the
was that rodeo
day
they
of
had in the
47
spring.
rodeo they used to have?
Yeah, that day of 47 rodeo. I got kicked over there. That's what I remember.
They used to have a big pro rodeo there.
Yeah, it's a good one.
And the circuit finals was there for a
I
long
think
time.
C.R. Bradley won the calf rope, and I think that might have been the year that he made the finals. But I had one roped quick, and he kicked me.
CR, that's a heck of a horse trainer.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get off the subject of 9/11. I'm just...
But, yeah, I volunteered, and we were at my father-in-law's, and it was kind of before I went up there. But all that was on TV, and, you know, my father-in-law was a fire chief, and he was watching that, and I'll never forget, he said, I bet there's a fire chief feeling awful guilty about right now. He said, somebody made the decision to send them guys in them buildings. And he sat there a minute, and he said, yeah, I'd have sent them in there too. But he said, somewhere there's a fire chief feeling really bad about it right now.
Well, you just don't see too many buildings just implode right back on themselves, you know? So who would have thought?
But that was the cool thing about being up there. The people of New York were really good to me. And I was scared of them. I'd always heard how rude Yankees was. And
Yeah.
animal rights activists. And
What
all
the frick
that.
you doing? Oh!
But we went in a steakhouse one day. We'd get dirty. We worked at the landfill. They took all the debris from Ground Zero over to landfill on Staten Island. And we went into a steakhouse one day, and when we opened the door, there was a dude in a tuxedo there to take you and set you down. And we looked at him, and he looked at us, and we was like, hey, we won't come in. We're not dressed for this. And he asked us, he said, y'all working over at the landfill? And we said, yeah. He said, you wait just a minute. And they took us and set us in the back there in a little room. And it was the first time I'd ever had prime rib. I'd never had prime rib until that day. Well, we ordered prime rib, and we ordered dessert, and I don't know, I had 8 or 10 refills on my Coke. But finally we just like, hey, y'all got to bring us the check. We got to go. And they was like, no, there's no check. Just go. But they wouldn't let us pay for our food.
Wow.
Yeah. But the NYPD, I had to check in with NYPD every morning. And, I mean, they were really good. There was a woman in that office. The first time I went was in October, just a few, about a month after the attacks. But I always, every morning I'd look at her and I thought, man, like she looks like death warmed over. She just looks like crap. But they lost so many people and they were so short-handed, but like nobody got a day off. And I'll never forget the World Series were going on, and they started to cancel the World Series. And then they was like, no, we ain't letting terrorists cancel our World Series. We're doing this. And so they were working the World Series, working at the landfill, and they had all that going on. But Ray Charles played America the Beautiful at the World Series.
I remember.
And I wasn't at the World Series, but I was in a motel room the night he played that, and I'll tell you what, that was something else.
It sure was.
But there was a lot of cool stuff happened up there.
So tell us, without going into too much detail, what were you actually doing up there?
So birds migrate south in the fall, and seagulls on the East Coast are kind of trained to fly from landfill to landfill, and they scavenge for whatever they can find to eat. If you live over there on the ocean, they call them the rats of the sea.
We got seagulls at the landfills right here in Oklahoma, too.
Yeah,
They're everywhere.
There's pictures, though, where the sky's just white with them, like on the landfill. But they were scavenging. I mean, they were feeding on the remains.
On remains, yeah.
And so I shot kind of like bottle rocket deals and kept them run off. And then rats are another thing that's really bad. And so we trapped all the rats. And that was, in a way, it was kind of scary. I'd pull out like this little revolver starter pistol, and you'd put your bottle rocket deal on there and shoot it at them, and it'd make a whizzing noise, or some of them would go bang real loud. But we was always worried about, like, FBI rotated people in and out, and there was always new people in there. I was always worried that somebody'd think that we was shooting a real gun and shoot us, But got along pretty good. The buildings, each building had a specific spot at the landfill. And so the North Tower was here, the South Tower was here. Well, then Building 7 was off over kind of just across the little old road there. And, you know, if a bird landed in there, I was supposed to get out and kind of say, hey, I'm going to shoot a firecracker and run this bird off. And, you know, be nice to everybody. But those guys at Building 7, like, they turned their back to me. I'd go over there and kind of shoot the bull with them. They turned their back to me, and they were kind of standoffish. And it was years later I learned that CIA had offices in Building 7. And so I'm pretty sure that was CIA in there that was looking for their stuff. But FBI guys was real friendly. They would, when the dump truck would come and dump that debris, they would kind of scatter their load. And then there'd be 10 or 20 guys like with rakes and pitchforks and shovels and 5-gallon buckets. And they would put remains in the bucket. And it wasn't like big pieces of people. It was little bitty things. But they would just, across this little old road there was tables like this one, them white plastic tables like you have at church or a school event, and they'd put butcher paper on top of them and dump that stuff out. But I ate lunch one day with two ladies, and they were anthropologists from Arizona State University, and they went through the remains and tagged and bagged. But also inside the Twin Towers were restaurants. And so there might be a chicken bone or a bone like from a steak or something that they would have to, know that's not human remains. And it was really interesting.
Did they have DNA then?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were doing DNA testing on them, and that was what she said was the fires at Ground Zero burned a long, long time. And to get the good mitochondrial DNA, you wanted tissue, not bone. And she said like those fires basically kind of preserved the tissue, kind of like a smoker does, meat. But she said that's kind of awful to say that, but it helped them identify those.
Well, that's something you didn't see on the news, Cody, but you never even give that any
Well,
thought.
I knew they hauled the buildings away and they were like investigating the rubble, in certain areas, but yeah, that's wild.
There was rows and rows of fire trucks. I mean, and cabs and stuff, but mainly fire trucks.
Wonder how many people were actually identified. Did you ever hear
I don't know
percentage or anything?
I don't know how many they actually identified. There was about 3,000 people killed.
Yeah, I know.
And then I don't know. I haven't ever looked to see how many of them they figured out who they was. They identified a cop by the serial number on the gun. I know they identified another guy because his name was embroidered in like some custom made shoes. There's some cool stuff that way. I mean, that they found and I've been to that. They've got a museum there at Ground Zero now. It's pretty cool.
You've been back and seen that.
Yeah.
Well, you made it. What? Did you make 2 trips up there when you were doing that?
Yeah. They got screwed up on their scheduling after New Year's, and so I kind of went up there and worked by myself for a little bit. But me and the state director in New York, he kind of liked me, and he kind of trusted that I knew what I was doing there. First time I went, I had a guy that kind of got himself in trouble. He arranged for the NYPD to take him down into Ground Zero, and give him a tour, and he wasn't supposed to do that. And so, I was kind of having to deal with that guy, and me and the state director had a lot of conversations.
You might tell people, too, and show them that badge. That's actually the badge you wore.
Yeah, and that's the badge I wore when I was at Ground Zero, or at actually the landfill, the Fresh Kills landfill. But, yeah, I found that in my drawer and brought it up here today.
Wow. Well, you're the first person I've ever met that actually went up there and did all that.
It was quite the ordeal. We went through all the debris twice in 9 months. Wow. And that's pretty cool.
And it had to just be tons and tons and tons of it.
They had cutting torches up there that looked like they was 3 feet long, and that I-beam, it was over an inch thick, and that cutting torch had cut that like a hot knife through butter.
Yeah.
And it wasn't acetylene, it was MAP gas or something. But I've never seen a cutting torch.
Yeah, I think MAP gets a little hotter than acetylene.
I've seen they use those long torches here. Those junkies do that, like cut up tanks and stuff, oil field tanks. They'll have a big old long torch and do that.
Well, I visited with that old boy quite a bit. That guy was a scrap iron guy, and they was hauling a bunch of it out for scrap iron, you know. But it's kind of cool. All the different people up there, cops, the Port Authority of like New Jersey was there, and that guy was pretty interesting, just talking about all them barges and keeping track of them.
That's got to be a handful. You know, people don't. I've been up through New York a few times, and what struck me is wild about it is most of the state is open country until you get to you know the bigger cities. I mean, you'll drive for hours and hours and hours, and it's like driving through the Panhandle of Oklahoma, pretty much, you know, or Texas. A little different landscape, but desolate. There's just nothing out there, you know. For a lot of it, it seemed. I was real surprised. I thought the whole state was New York City, to be honest with you.
They got real good deer hunting up there.
I imagine.
Yeah. Wow, that's quite a story. I hope we never have to go through anything like that again.
It's horrible.
Well, what got you started in politics? Did that have something to do with it?
Yeah. So, you know, I moved from Heavener to Nowata to get that job. And, you know, we didn't have any friends or family up there. And so the deal was when I moved up there, we thought there'd be a guy that lived around Stigler there retire in about 2 years. Well, about 6 months after I was hired, there was a group of politicians got together, and just out of thin air, they created a bunch of them trapping jobs, but they hired their relatives. And so
that's the way it goes in Southeast Oklahoma.
Well, it was not just Southeast Oklahoma; it was all over the state. But
Eastern Oklahoma.
I ended up having to kind of go do their job too at different times, and you know, when I hired one, they give me a junky truck and junky equipment. That's the new guy, and then as you're there longer, you get nicer stuff. Well, one of those guys, when they hired him, they tried giving him the junky truck and junky stuff, and he said no. He said, my father-in-law gave y'all enough money, I want a new truck. By God, he got a new truck. But the day my grandpa died, Mom called me and told me he had died. He had cancer. But I thought, them damn politicians' kids ain't 200 miles from home. And I kind of swore, like, one of these days I'll run for office, and I may not win, but I'm going to say what needs to be said. So when I ran, I started in 2009, and I was first elected in 2010, but they had a political meeting one time at the Votech in Poto, and they'd ask a question, and they'd go down the row of, there were 6 candidates running for state representative, but everybody had answered this question. Well, one of them was about wasteful government spending. What will you do about that? And I was about the 4th or 5th one in line to answer that question. I got kind of lucky. Well, I thought, by God, here's my chance to tell off. And I mean, I went off about political hires, and, you know, I'd went to college, and them other guys that got hired never set foot in a college. And my dad was on the front row right in front of me, and Dad was going, no, shut up, shut up, shut up. And when that thing got over, every person in that room come up and shook my hand and thanked me for saying that. And me and Dad had rode up there together. And on the way home, he said, looked at me and he said, well, he said, you won that one hands down, and it wasn't close. And I was the poorest funded candidate in 2010, but I wore out 2 sets of tires on my pickup, and I wore out 3 sets of shoes. We passed out, I think, 20,000 brochures, like, you know, this is what I stand for. But I mean, I knocked every door in the county for a year. I think I hit every door 3 or 4 times and left a brochure. And so even though I was the poorest funded one, I got into a runoff, and all the other candidates that didn't make the runoff backed me. And that's how I beat that guy. And so the night of the primary, I wrote a speech that I lost, because I know, I mean, I'm not supposed to win. Some of the most powerful people in Florida County was my opponent, lots of money, you know, and well-known. And so then the night of the runoff, I still wrote a speech to lose. And none of the newspapers were at my watch party. They all had to drive over after I won. And I didn't have a speech. to win. I had a speech to lose, and I didn't know what to say. But that's where it kind of hit home that, oh no, I think I'm going to be a representative. I'll never forget after the election in November, just a day or two after the election, we start getting stuff in the mail that says the honorable state representative, and me and my wife would giggle when we'd get that stuff in the mail. But that was kind of cool.
What was the story about your wife bawled her eyes out in Spyro?
So, you know, we'd get 6 or 8 people, and we'd divvy up, and we'd walk down the streets and knock on doors. And so one day, like, you know, we're just going to do this little section of town. It's hot. We're going to get out of there before it gets hot. Well, she disappeared on me, and I couldn't find her. And I mean, I'm walking the streets looking, and I thought, man, somebody's grabbed her. And all of a sudden, I see her coming up a road, and her makeup's all runny and black streaks down her face where her mascara ran. And I thought somebody had hit her or been mean to her. And she said, no, this guy, his son or nephew was killed, like in Afghanistan. And he took her in the backyard. She went in the backyard, and he had like a memorial.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then there was one other, you said something about anything's better than the SOB we have now.
Yeah, that's a funny one. So the guy that was representative or senator before me, in a little town called Arcoma, it's right over on the Arkansas line, there's a story about he knocked on the door, and he was running for re-election. He was the senator, and he asked a guy for his vote or whatever, and the guy said, yeah, I'll vote for you. Anything's better than the little son of a bitch we got now. Well, he was the guy, and the guy didn't know. And so I'm in Arcoma, and I knock on the door, and this is later on, I'm running for re-election. And the guy said the same thing, and I don't know if it's the same guy or not, but anyway.
Could have been.
But I kind of talked to him, and I was like, hey, can I put a sign up in your yard? He lived like at the intersection of the highway, and he's like, yeah, sure. You seem like a good guy. Well, when I left, I called that guy that used to be the senator and told him, I said, yeah, you got his vote, but I got a sign in his yard too.
Oh.
Do you know old Tater Decker down there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They had an indoor arena. Dirk, his son.
Yeah. I was trying to remember his first name the other day, his son's first name.
Yeah, Dirk put a Tater's saddle up on Facebook the other day for sale. An old saddle Tater had won somewhere.
Really?
Yeah.
What the heck you doing, Dirk? Selling your dad's saddle?
I don't know.
He was one of the original Cowboy Turtles. I remember I got familiar with him when we moved down to that country, and he'd always show up. It seems like a red shirt,
Probably.
with a black tie, or a white shirt with a red tie. I can't remember, but he always, every time you'd see him, he'd be that way.
Joe Decker was the rodeo secretary, his wife.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of historic rodeo guys from down in in just that southeast Oklahoma area.
They were real good friends with John and Jane Justin of Justin Boots. And I heard lots of stories about them going down and spending time at John and Jane's house and stuff like that. But that was always pretty cool, rodeoing with Dirk. He had lots of stories.
Lane Frost was from down in southeast Oklahoma.
Freckles Brown.
Don Huddleston.
Yeah, now Don, there's a story.
Yeah.
So Don served in the legislature too. And him and
he got thrown in prison over serving in the legislature, didn't he?
Him and Governor Bourne, I think, got into it real bad. I think it was Governor Bourne. But
I'm sure Don didn't do anything to deserve it. He's a good guy.
when I was in college at Stillwater, we had bulldogged the team roping steers, and they were weak, we just tortured them. And so school gets out in May, and I think, I'm going to go down there. They have that bulldogging at Don's. I'm going to go down there and practice with them. Well, I go down there, and them dang steers probably weighed 600. And I get a hold of this steer, and he just runs over me. And that ground's just sand. But it's like he smushes me down in the sand like a snow angel. And I'm mad. And I kind of lay there a minute, and I think they all thought I was hurt. When I finally got up and they seen I was all right, the whole place just erupted. That's the end of my bulldogging.
Jim Painter was from down in that country.
Yep.
Did you know Jim Painter?
Nah, I don't.
He was a real character. I think he went to the first NFR bulldogging, and one of the years he would have won the world, but they went off. I think he won the finals that year, but he was really something else.
Yeah, he was quite a character.
He was a character.
Stories,
I used to clean his stalls when I first moved down to McAllister. I didn't know who he was, and he started telling me all these stories about Madison Square Garden, and some of them I can't repeat. Most of them I can't repeat, but maybe we'll do a different podcast one of these days where I can repeat those stories, because everyone would sure like to hear them. I just don't want
we need to do a
women or kids to hear him.
PG-13 podcast on Jim Painter sometime.
Yeah, there's a handful of guys we could throw in that deal.
What about the Oklahoma build the DHS building with stolen funds? What's the story on that?
So, Gene Stipe was a state senator from McAllister for like 50 years.
I knew him.
And he wrote a book, and this is how I know about this, because I've read his book. But back during the Great Depression, Roosevelt started giving out welfare checks. And you got to think about this. When they first started doing this, they didn't really have a good system and all that. Well, there was a guy in Oklahoma that handed out the welfare checks. That's what he did. So anyway, the governor of Oklahoma hires this guy to kind of be the head of the welfare department. That's what it was called back then. Well, the federal government sent Oklahoma several $1 million by mistake. And this guy gets it, and he looks at it, and he's like, we're not supposed to have this. And so he goes to the governor, and he says, Governor, the feds screwed up. They sent us all this money, and we do not deserve it. And he said, if you'll give me permission, I don't want to give it back. I want to put it in a savings account. And he said, I think it'll take them 2 or 3 years to figure out they screwed up. And he said, if we're lucky, we'll get to keep the interest off this money. And so, sure enough, it took them 2 or 3 years. Well, when they go to Washington, D.C., Gene Stipe's an attorney and a state senator. He goes up there with them, and they go in the court, and the federal judge comes in and says, Oklahoma, what claim do you make to this money? And they said, none. We'll give it back. Bam, case closed. Got up and walked out. Nobody said nothing about the interest. And that is how we built the first DHS headquarters in Oklahoma City, was the interest from that money that we didn't have no right to. Basically stolen money.
Yeah.
So that's pretty slick.
Well, that's no step for Gene Stipe, that's for sure.
No, that was mild for him.
That's mild for that guy.
What about the guy whose well went dry, and why you always answer the phone?
So, like I said, when I'd never been a student officer, or FFA officer, or nothing. And when I first got elected, it got dry. I think in 2011, it got real bad dry in Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. But summertime, you get out of session in May, and then you're home most of the summer. But I got a phone call one day. It's hot summertime, and this lady worked at the Cowboys Community Action office, and she told me, she said, James, there's this guy, his well went dry, and he can't even flush the toilet. And he went down DHS to ask for like help, like food stamps and stuff. And she said they turned him down. And she said, we got to do something. He's like, he don't have any money. He don't have a way to get any water. She said, will you call down there and ask them to like reevaluate this? I said, yeah, sure, I don't care. And she gave me a number. I didn't have a number, but so I called down there and said, hey, man, this guy can't even flush his toilet. He don't have no food. What y'all doing? And they said, send him back. So I called her and said, hey, they said, send him back. I get off the phone with her, and I don't think nothing about it. I'm going about my day and whatever week. Well, I don't know, a few days, a week goes by, and that lady called me again for something. And she said, James, that guy that went down there to DHS, they helped him. And he come back up here because they had a food bank, and they was going to give him like some canned goods and stuff like that. And she said he come in here and sat down and started crying. And he said if he hadn't got help, he's just going to go home and commit suicide because he didn't have no way to eat or drink. He thought that'd be better than, the other way. And so ever since then, I've always, been pretty good about answering the phone and returning calls. But boy, that bothered me, that just that little old phone call made that big a difference. And even today, like I get phone calls, somebody, wanting a job reference or to know what government agency to call to get help with this or that. I had a guy call one time. He was having a hard time getting his pesticide applicator license. Like you get that and you get the good spray to spray your pastures with. Well, he lived, I don't know, around Oklahoma City there somewhere. But I told him, I was like, well, if I call and mess around in another representative's district, I can kind of get in trouble. And I said, call your representative and ask him for help. And if he don't help you, then I'll help you. So anyway, he called the guy and in just a few minutes called me back and said, that guy said he don't know nothing about, how to help me with this. And I was like, well, just call over at Department of Agriculture and tell them Representative Lockhart said to help you with your pesticide applicator license that it's got lost in the mail or something. And he said, are you sure that? I was like, yeah, they're good people. I was like, I know exactly where that little desk is right across from where the government trappers are. I know them people good. Yeah, okay, I'll try that. And so I gave him the number to call, like the main number. And, well, about an hour he called me back and he said, I didn't think in a million years this would work, but they're mailing me my license. I was like, yeah. But I want to point this out. We are electing people to the legislature that are so damn stupid they don't know to tell the farmer to call the Department of Agriculture and get help. That actually has happened. But I mean, when you run for office, you kind of need a general idea of how the government works. But that really opened my eyes to how bad some things can be. And that's not like a liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican deal. It's just like knowledge of how government works. But them guys in the Department of Ag, I ain't met a person in the Department of Ag that's not just willing to jump through hoops to help somebody, you know what I mean? You just got to be able to get to the right person. I like the Department of Ag. That's kind of my favorite agency.
Perfect. I don't like any of them.
What made you get out of politics when you did?
Well, Hope and Jacob. Hope was about to go into high school, and Jacob was kind of getting where, like, I missed his first T-ball game, and I was like not able to do a whole lot of school activities with him. And then on the flip side, like on the political side of it, 2010 through 2016 when I was in there was, in 2010, it was the height of the Great Recession. Oklahoma was broke. And then even in 16, we were still having real bad budget problems. 30,000 teachers striked and came to the Capitol. And I just felt like there was Democrats and Republicans both that knew that we needed to change the way that we depended so much on the oil and gas. And when it went down, our state government just went to nothing. But people weren't really doing what they needed to be doing as far as our leadership. And I just got really fed up with that. And later on, there was some stuff come out about some of those people that proved me right, that they weren't there for the right reason. And so I got out of it, just aggravated.
While you still had your integrity, and you could look yourself in the mirror.
I about got in a fist fight on the floor one night with a guy because he wouldn't turn my microphone on. And then in caucus meeting one day, there was a guy that pulled some stuff on me, and I about whooped him. They had to get in between us, but they didn't like the cowboy when the cowboy come out in me.
You said, something I admire too. You said you didn't rodeo at all when you were serving because you didn't want to be accused of not giving it your full attention.
Yeah, and see, just like what he said about Don, Don got in trouble, and then there was another guy from down around Durant that was big in the Choctaw Nation he was a big rodeo guy, and he got in a bunch of trouble with the Choctaws. But I felt like the men that came before me, Jim Hamilton was our family attorney for years, and he was the pro tem of the Senate as a senator. He was the leader of the Senate. He was chairman of appropriations in the House of Representatives. And I mean, he was extremely powerful. He was kind of like Carl Albert on the state level. But those men I kind of held in very high regard. And if I was going to do that, I was going to give it, my level best. But I didn't rodeo at all. I finished 16th in the CRRA in 08 or 09. I think it's 08. I had the horse. I had a horse that was come from Kansas, and she was horse of the year in Kansas. And I mean, I turned her out. Yeah. And I didn't think that'd be that big a deal. But, boy, it's been hard to, like, come back. You know what I mean?
You still roping pretty good. I see some videos on there every once in a while,
So
he gives a lot of lessons on video.
I told Ricky Hyde I was a world champion shoot help at my house. His wife argued with me, said, "No, I think Ricky is." But I turn out a lot of calves.
Yeah.
Where do you tell young people to look when they're roping a calf?
I look at the hair on the back of their neck, and there's generally a little swirl.
Yeah.
Kind of look at that swirl is what I'm looking at. And main thing is, as long as you're focused on one little piece and you're not just trying to rope at the calf, I think it's kind of like shooting a gun. You aim small, you miss small. If you don't really aim small, you're just liable to miss the whole barn.
I ask about every calf roper. Yeah. We know that just to see, because it does vary from roper to roper. Some of them looked at their right eye, some of them look at their right ear, some of them look a little further back, just like you.
I have to look back. If I look at the right eye, I'll miss them. I think. I don't know. I've never done that.
Yeah, I don't love the right eye theory.
That's what my grandpa, he told me, said, try to hit him right in the right eye. But he was old school. I mean, things have changed. You haven't been shy about your opinion about the way they do the rodeos now with not opening it up to everybody.
Yeah, that really ticked me off this year. They're limited in Cheyenne, and me and my daughter's just out of chiropractor school. We were, I mean, that was my deal. I wanted.
They've been limited in Cheyenne for some years, but nothing compared to what they limited it this year.
Yeah.
I mean, they were taking close to 200 ropers or 150 at least, and now they backed it off to 40 something.
Yeah. And then
how are you supposed to get in the top 40 if you can't go to the ropings?
And if I was a sponsor, like if I'm sponsoring, some contestant, and they limit that deal, and now my contestant can't get on TV, why do I want to sponsor that guy? But I mean, they're killing the chances of the guys coming up, like getting some good sponsors, because they're not going to be on TV at all.
Well, they're saying that this is my take on this deal. They're saying that all the contestants up there burdens the rodeo committee and the rodeo grounds. What do you think of these qualifiers are going to do to these littler rodeos that qualify for Cheyenne this year? It's going to put all that extra money burden right on these smaller rodeos that maybe can't afford it because they got to pay all that stock charge for everybody that enters.
I can understand like Houston, and I'm assuming Calgary's a big city.
Houston used to not limit. Their slack used to be huge.
Yeah.
Roy Duval let 50-something people ride his horse one day there during the slack.
But Cheyenne's like a hole-in-the-wall town. And to me, that don't make good sense for your local businesses to cut us all off, because like it would have been my whole family and maybe even extended family go to Cheyenne.
Yeah, that was their vacation. A lot of people's vacation was to go to Cheyenne.
Well, the Cowboys used to make up a significant amount of the money they bring in, but now there's so many people come in. All the room that our trucks and trailers take up could be parking for 4 or 5 smaller cars that can fit in the fairgrounds that day. It's just a lot of it's these big rigs. I'm going to just be honest with everyone. They've run out of room at the rodeo grounds for the rigs. I mean, we were there 2 years ago when they put my dad in the Hall of Fame there, and people couldn't open their tack room doors or their living quarters doors. That's how close the rigs had to be parked together to fit in there. I mean, it was really eye-opening because, just in the last few years, these rigs have gotten, they're as big as a semi, a lot of them, the truck and trailer.
Mine is a semi. I got a Freightliner and a 40-foot living quarter trailer.
Yep.
It used to be in the rule book, the RCA rule book, that all rodeos were open to all members in good standing, paid up members. Yeah. And that was one of the holdups about the finals. There was people on the board that really fought the 59 finals because everybody couldn't go. Yeah. And they said, it's right here in the book. It's supposed to, all rodeos are open to every paid up member. And that held the finals back a year or two because people were so adamant about that.
It was just a few years ago that the top cowboys broke off, going to make their own rodeo association, but they found out real quick without a membership backing up all the money to run it, there wasn't enough money with just the top guys. There's too many events for the sponsors to pick up. Like a bull riding, there's one. Yeah. There's the bull riding. Well, they'd have to spread that across 7 events, in the other deal. It just didn't work out.
The other thing that was explained to me about sponsorships, NASCAR gets all this sponsorship money because for 4 hours on Saturday, people sit there and stare at this, DuPont race car going in a circle, and DuPont's name is on TV for 4 hours, whereas a bull rider, calf roper, whatever, if you got a patch on your shirt, you're maybe on TV for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And so the sponsors, that they value that TV time, and our percentage as a contestant of TV time is tiny. So that's one thing that hurts us.
Well, thank God for them, though. These cowboys are making it a lot better now that there are sponsors helping them out.
I think these podcasts and stuff like that's going to help that, though. You get these top guys on these podcasts and stuff like that. That kind of helps that advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely helps their sponsors if they talk about them a little bit, or they're just sitting there wearing the shirt for an hour or two during a podcast. So.
Right. Who would you put on your Mount Rushmore calf ropers?
Oh, man. I'm going to go a different route. The ones that I've seen with my own eyes a lot. At the top of that list, I'd have to put Don Smith. I've seen him spank some guys that were in their prime when he was in his 40s. I heard Clay Tom Cooper talk about that the amateur rodeos in Texas were tougher than the RCA rodeos back in the 80s and 90s. And I know of one guy that went to Texas and would spank them every weekend, and that's Shane Ross. His dad was Butch Ross at Bulldog and roped calves in the IRA, but Shane could go to Texas to the IRA, to the CRRAs and stuff like that. He made the IRA finals too, but he'd spank them every weekend down there. But I'd say Don and Shane and maybe Billy Hamilton. Billy should have made the NFR. Billy's big and strong and fast. And then probably Ken. Ken Bailey was as lethal as anybody back then. I sure didn't want to tangle with him.
He was a bad cat. Even until he got pretty dang old, he's still no fun to mess with, I don't think, in the calf roping or the steer roping.
I'll tell you, I guess I'm prejudiced towards Oklahoma, but all these Texas guys talk about how tough the Texas calf ropings are. I'll say even today, I dare them Texans to come up around Tulsa and get you some of that. You get Jarvis or Trey Goff or Anthony Craig's kind of quit, but there's some kids around here, Worm Shipley's boy Houston, there's some young kids around here that can freaking rope even today.
Houston was at my house yesterday. I sent a horse down for him to ride.
That's a roping sucker right there.
Yeah, the kid ropes good.
You mentioned your boy a while ago. He's roping?
He's kind of backed off. He's in the Votech program, for diesel mechanic.
Oh, yeah.
And he works for the Dodge dealership. He really did good until he turned 16. And today, he only weighs about 125 pounds. Put 20 more pounds on him, and he's going to be hard to beat. He scores good, he ropes good, handles his slack good, but he's just not quite big and stout enough to really tear him out of the ground and flank a bigger type calf yet.
You got a good teacher, too.
Yeah. And your daughter, I've seen some stuff on Facebook. She's a chiropractor and works on animals?
Yeah. She was at OIE just here the other day working on show animals at OIE, and they had to stay late because she had a line. But it's pretty amazing the stuff that she does, and she's went and got certified in acupuncture too. And I mean, I was supposed to have knee surgery for about 3 years now, and she keeps me sound enough that I keep chickening out on having surgery.
And her business is Hope Chiropractic?
Hope Chiropractic, yeah. She's in Pensacola, and she travels quite a bit doing horses and all kinds of animals.
Yeah.
She worked on a bunny rabbit one time.
I saw her on Facebook doing a dog. It was really neat the way she's popping that dog, and it looked like that dog felt better.
Well, I'm sure it did.
Yeah, dogs are kind of cool. Like they wag their tail and really get excited.
Yeah.
What do you think about the resurgence of the breakaway event?
I love it. I'll be honest with you. I fast forward to it. You know, it's one of my favorite events to watch. And them girls, I mean, they're tearing it up. It's helped our horse market.
It's opened up a whole new world in the horse market, I feel like.
Oh, my gosh.
Just the sheer numbers of them needing something to ride.
It's just exploded.
I feel like the rope market's exploded. I mean, I was telling someone the other day, I used to carry 1 or 2 ropes around with me. My daughters, they got bags full of brand new ropes so they can find something to feel good. And they got, the rope old Martha uses and the rope that Taylor uses and the rope. We just went to straight polys. We got rid of all these other ones, but
she was in college down there in Dallas for 3.5 years, and she'd run over to NRS, and she'd get her a rope every now and then. And here a while back, she come in the house. I'm not kidding. I think she had a dozen, but different ones. You know, and I think she's going to try them all.
Those like nylon blend ones they're using, I can't feel a tip on them.
I don't like them.
I cannot. When you're swinging one, there's just absolutely no tip weight on it. I don't know. Curl don't come around good. It feels like the curl just comes out of it, and they got a bigger chance of running through it or stepping a leg in it. And there's just a lot of stuff that I'm not loving about these new.
I like them blue polys. I can see them. I can see it go around their neck better.
Yeah.
I figured out a few years ago that a bright colored piggin string, I could see it better at night at them rodeos. And so I've kind of went to them brighter strings.
I can't see at night at all driving anymore.
I know. I hate.
It's getting real bad.
You're not that old yet.
I know, but it's getting bad, Jimbo.
Well, I hate to drive at night. Them lights just blind you, and you can't see the center line or the shoulder or nothing.
Nothing.
Else.
I'm just hoping I get by the car going by me.
I know. It's crazy. That's why I just stay home.
Well, this breakaway roping's pretty exciting. That NRS, every time I take the family down there now, I'm kind of dreading it. I used to love going down there, and now
it's not cheap.
No, it's like it's Christmas every time we go there. It's the Christmas budget 4 or 5 times a year every time we go down to NRS.
My daughter, and then I've got a couple other girls that come over and rope, and that's what's good for me is they're pretty good about keeping my horses rode, and it don't take me long to get on them and tighten them up or straighten them out if they get them ducking off a little bit, but at my age, I don't care if I practice that much or not.
Yeah. Yeah, my daughters, what they don't understand is they're just now understanding the downside of rodeo, because I kind of quit when my youngest one was born and take care of business here, and they don't understand, that you don't win every single rodeo you pull up to, and they're just now understanding.
That's what sucks about the Cheyenne deal, because I was wanting to kind of make a little run out through there and try to go to like 10, and some of them good rodeos in Kansas and whatnot of them way up there. And Hope got to go with me quite a bit. I was still rodeoing when she was little, but, Jacob was born in 2007, and then I served in the legislature and didn't rodeo at all. And that kind of sucks the way they done Cheyenne. It really, I'm kind of bummed.
Well, there's a lot of cowboys are bummed. A lot of steer ropers are bummed. A lot of calf ropers just across the board. Everyone's bummed because, Cheyenne, it's always been considered anybody's rodeo. Yeah. If you can enter it, you got a chance to win it right then. I mean, the oldest guy to ever win it is Ike Rude, 58 years old, won it one time.
So the first calf I ever ran at Cheyenne tore my shirt off of me. And then the second one I run him past the camera pit and tied him in 16 flat, and I thought that was one of the best runs I've ever made. I mean, I did jerk that sucker down.
Such a hallowed place in the sport of rodeo. It is very unfortunate what they've done to it.
I will say what I'm planning now is I'm going to go to the roping fiesta.
Yeah.
Because they've got numbered ropings, and then they do have that qualifier, and if you do good at it, you can rope in the main roping. But I'm gonna go down there. I'm gonna take my two good horses down there, and by God, I'm gonna enter up. I'm gonna enter everything they'll let me enter.
San Angelo Roping Fiesta, that's the second oldest continuous steer roping and calf roping jackpot in the nation. Ben Johnson's first. We're the oldest.
Dirk Webb kicked me out of the 12-point down there a couple of years ago, so I don't even know what roping they'll let me rope in. Well, I guess most people get mad about getting kicked out. Hell, I wore it like a badge of honor. I got kicked out of a Texas roping for roping too good.
That's right. That's right. Well, heck, what else you got for him today, Jimbo?
Oh, I don't know. Just appreciate him. He made a pretty good drive this morning to come up to see us.
He did.
We appreciate that.
I suggest everyone follow his page. Is it James Lockhart Roping?
Yeah.
I get a lot of great little tidbits to tell the girls off of because he explains it like the old school guys explained it to me when I was growing up. And that's what I appreciate about it. He's not going all this new weird stuff. And part of the stuff that he even has on there, he makes himself, like his breakaway rope and his calf tying dummy and everything. But the way he explains it, it's like one of the old school ropers explaining it to you so you can understand it. And I do appreciate that about your page. I've been watching it quite a bit, and I agree with almost everything you say because it's all very, very good, very good tips for people. I feel like
I'm becoming the spokesperson for the old unsponsored calf roper. You know what I mean? Like, hey, talking about sponsors though, it's called H&E Tires in Atoka, but they've been really good to us. If you need tires, go look them up on Facebook. I've got 10 new tires sitting outside here, 6 on the truck and 4 on the trailer. That he's been real good to us. And then Mo Betta made all Jacob's shirts for a long time. And
oh yeah,
Maury's been really good to us. And Bub and Nancy was really good to me when I was high school.
Yeah, I knew his dad, Bub. He was a good guy too.
Those are my 2 main sponsors.
Nice,
cool.
My sponsor was my wife.
Yeah.
She had the full-time job.
That too.
She got a tax return. I couldn't believe it. I said it here a while back, but I still to this day.
Yeah.
We just barely got married, James, and we got a check for like $7,000 in the mail from her working, and we took and hit the road with that.
Heck yeah.
We took and hit the road with that. Couldn't believe it.
Heck yeah.
Hell, I hadn't even filed taxes. I didn't know what a tax return was. No. But I was sure happy to see that baby come in the mail. We
like
rodeoed. We rodeoed that week.
Thank y'all for having me.
Oh, yeah. We do got the new book in. Be sure and order it right off the website, BenJohnsonCowboyMuseum.com. The new Ben Johnson book, Tall in the Saddle. We just got 100 copies headed our way. And it's a thick one, too. Look how many pages are in it.
That's a lot of
There's some good reading in that.
There.
We already have it. It's here.
It's here. All right.
They're here.
Get them ordered.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. We'll see y'all the first and third Thursday every month.
And come buy some jewelry.
Come buy some jewelry.
The live sale, because that's what keeps these podcasts and this museum open.
Yep, jewelry sales, keeping the podcast and museum going. No doubt about it. Thank you, everybody.
I like this. This is a good deal y'all are doing.
We appreciate it. We really do. And thank you for coming on.
Yes.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it. Thanks for all your service. I mean, it takes a pretty big guy to go keep the rodents from
I know. I never.
keeping.
Yeah, that's something nobody else ever thinks of, but all that was going on. That's crazy.
It is crazy. Well, all right. We'll see everybody next week.
Later.